Joining me now to break down where the Republican Party stands with less than 90 days until the election is Liz Harrington, the national spokesperson for the RNC. So Liz, earlier today we heard an FEC commissioner say that a surge in mail-in ballots could make sure that we don't know who the winner is of Election Day days after or possibly even weeks after people actually come out and cast their ballots in person. Does that concern you?
Absolutely, it's concerning. That's why we are active in over 20 states, defending the laws already on the books, defending the laws that uphold the good absentee systems that are already in place with common sense safeguards like signature verification. And hey, maybe it's not a good idea to allow ballots to be cast and counted after Election Day. That's what Democrats are after. And I think Attorney General William Barr really explained this so clearly over the weekend in his interview on Fox, which was saying how this is all about integrity of our elections. And if we lose confidence and don't have confidence in the outcome, this will be have terrible consequences for our country. And this is what the Democrats are after. I think they sowed chaos and confusion and tried to say that the 2016 result was illegitimate. They're planning ahead for their loss in 2020 to try to say, oh, there was something nefarious going by the own mail-in systems that are such a disaster by putting those in place.
You know, you bring up an interesting point because oftentimes we hear members of the media say, what happens if President Trump doesn't accept the findings of the 2020 race? We hear Bill Maher, he's been saying it for 3 years now, what will happen if he doesn't leave the White House? But I've also heard a lot of conservatives point out, for example, that Hillary Clinton didn't accept the findings of the 2016 race. Stacey Abrams, it took her, I mean, she still hasn't necessarily accepted the findings, but she blames it on voter suppression. Hillary Clinton, it was Russian meddling. Does the Republican Party need to have a rebuttal or some type of answer just in case this is the strategy that is used the day after Election Day?
This is classic projection. This is what the Democrats do. They accuse you of what they are doing and still doing. To this day, Hillary Clinton won't accept the results. She's saying that, oh, her dossier, it's really true, and one day it'll all come out. It's so unhinged. But this is why we're active in the courts, because make no mistake, what Republicans are doing, we're simply protecting the laws already on the books. Democrats, they're trying to change the law. Why would you need to change the law to allow absentee voting to take place? Every state already has a system because what they're really after is ballot harvesting. Just like what they're doing in Nevada, they're changing the rules to try to rig them in their favor with less than 90 days to go before the election. That law is such a monstrosity, and this is why we're challenging it, and I believe we will win because it's so unconstitutional. A loophole allows 2 ballots to be counted in a single envelope, and it actually allows people to harvest ballots after Election Day and mail them in 3 days later. That's a joke. It's a mockery of our elections, and that's why we're fighting in court to prevent this from happening in November, because make no mistake, this is a defensive play by Democrats. So when they lose the election, they can say, oh, it really wasn't fair by their own systems that they put in place to try to rig it in their favor.
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting point that you bring up as well, because it's something that it's clearly going to control headlines as we move forward. It's something that they're pushing forward. I mean, we're about 90 days out, and we can see that this is the narrative that's almost controlling the whole news cycle right now. So I think that it is something that a lot of people should look out for. And listen, I'm all for having a conversation about mail-in voting. I know that some Republicans mail-in vote as well, but I think the problem that a lot of people have is doing it 3 months out of the election, especially when we saw, for example, what happened at the Iowa caucus and other elections during the Democratic primary where they did implement new systems, and it was a complete chaos for a couple days, if not a couple of weeks, that being Iowa. But before I let you go, too, Joe Biden is expected to pick his vice president sometime this week. A lot of reports saying that it's between Kamala Harris, Rice, Bass, people like that. Do you think it really matters? Does the VP change anybody's minds when it comes to the presidential pick?
No, I don't think so at all. And he's really backed himself into a left-wing corner. Any candidate he picks, he's already adopted the Bernie Sanders, Ocasio-Cortez manifesto. That's what they're running on. And they really have no choice now but to defend a radical base that's rioting in the street, a radical party that's defunding the police across this country, whether it's in Minneapolis or New York City. The crime is skyrocketing, and they're shutting down law-abiding citizens, their rights, they're open their business, or to send their kids to school. Look at what's going on in California. They are going to have to own their behavior during this pandemic. Democrats have had such a heavy hand punishing law-abiding citizens, but then when they let the riots happen, where were they protecting Americans' fundamental freedoms? And they're going to have to own up to that. They have so far sold themselves out so far to the radical left. There's no going back, and it's going to be roundly rejected, whether they're running Joe Biden in name only or not.
And I think that one issue that Joe Biden's going to have to face is the issue of authenticity. I mean, Joe Biden, for most of his career, has not been a progressive champion, and now all of a sudden he's trying to adopt these new policies and claim that I am a progressive champion running on the most progressive platform in modern U.S. history, yet his entire record, even during the Democratic primary, was something that some of his other candidates used against him. Now he's got to make that case to the American people in Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and say, well, I'm looking out for blue middle-class workers, but I'm also a progressive champion. And I think a lot of people are going to have problems with that because they know that Joe Biden is not that. I mean, they've been looking at his 40-year record. They have plenty of things to go off of. So I think an authenticity issue is also going to come into play. But Liz Harrington, I appreciate you coming on tonight and breaking down where we stand in the 2020 race. Thank you.